Hello again and welcome to part 2 of the Wood Art Shadow Box project. We've gone ahead, we've got the glue set, it's dry, and now we are sanding things down. If you've done your job correctly, you don't have any overhangs, you don't have any gaps, and the sanding is actually going to be very minimal. Now, if you happen to see any spots where the glue it came out and is dry, that needs to be removed by the sander. You need to get all the way down to bare wood. If you see anything that even remotely looks like it might be glue, keep sanding until it's gone. This is very, very important for the next step, staining. So once you've gone ahead and finished the sanding, it's time to apply the stain. Here I'm using red mahogany. There are a number of different stains that you can use. I'm going to go ahead and stain the MDF and the 2x4s. I'm going to stain everything. And the reason for this, at least on the MDF, is I want to hide it later on in the project. In this project, you will actually see small gaps between all the various pieces of pallet wood that I put on top of the MDF. There'll be little gaps that allow the pallet wood to expand and contract with weather. Staining the MDF makes it so you won't be able to see it once everything has been properly assembled. Also going to stain the 2x4s, and to do that, you really sort of pour it on. Slather it onto the 2x4s. You want it to be wet. So, in this case, there is not enough stain. Just keep pouring it on. You're going to let it sit there for about 15 minutes after you've applied the stain, and then you come in and wipe it off with a rag. And this is the proper way to apply stain. You slap it on, go heavy, and then you come back and you wipe it off. So while the stain is soaking into the wood, it's a really good time to go ahead and clean the shop. Spend the 15 minutes just sort of puttering around, picking up all of the stuff that you have left out and need to take care of. If you're anything like me, as much as you might like to put everything away as soon as it has been used and you're done with it, that falls by the wayside pretty quickly, and so you leave a giant trail of junk behind you. This is a perfect time to clean that up. I should also mention that this is an excellent project to learn how to do. This box idea is useful for making a number of things, from lanterns and chandeliers down to jewelry boxes and picture frames. And you should be seeing various links popping up on your screen right about now to other projects people have done that use this same basic concept. So after about 15 minutes, you can go ahead and remove the stain. To do this, take a clean cloth or gauze pad and wipe off the excess. If you wish the stain to be darker, wait a couple of hours and then reapply the stain. And then, of course, wait the extra 15 minutes and wipe it off again. This will cause the stain to be even darker, allow more stain to soak in, and things will darken up to your liking. So at this point in the project, it's time to go ahead and tear down your pallet. Each 2 foot by 2 foot shadow box frame will require 1 full pallet's worth of wood. Go ahead and choose a good pallet. You want something with interesting wood, and probably more importantly, you want a pallet that does not have a lot of junk in it. So avoid the nails, avoid bad crummy wood, rocks, any of that. You do not want to send that through any of your equipment. So take a few minutes, look at your pallet, make sure that it's the one you want to use. There are lots of pallets out there. They're free, So be picky. Now, to do this, I found the best tool to use is either a reciprocating saw or, in this case, a circular saw. Either of these will do the job quite nicely. The only really important thing to realize here is that as you cut down your pallet, it will become more and more unstable. Make sure to plan your cuts accordingly. Of course, you want to be very, very safe, and if the pallet starts moving around on you too much, you're going to put yourself into a situation where the saw can start to behave in weird ways that you don't want it to do. So keep your wits about you when you're doing this particular part of the project. It could get dangerous if you're not paying attention. So once you've got all the pieces cut out, you need to go ahead and send them through the jointer. Now, you are using pallet wood here, and it should be noted that you get what you pay for. And since you didn't pay anything for the pallets, you got them all for free, they're sort of junky. This means a couple of different things. First off, you need to inspect each board before you send it through. So here I'm doing a couple of things. I'm looking at the board to make sure it doesn't have any junk in it, no nails, no rocks, nothing that could damage my blades. And I'm looking at it to figure out which side has the crown and which side has the valley. I'm going to send the boards through valley side down. And what this means is as you look down the piece of wood, you will see a low spot and a high spot. You want to send the part of the wood that has the low side, the valley, that part of the wood needs to be put down and run across the blades. Leave the crown up. Once you have a flat edge on your pallet wood, the next step is to cut it down to size. Now, to start this, you need to know what the interior dimensions of your frame are. In my case, I had 21.5 inches. And I chose to burn the ½ inch because I'm going to need a little bit of wiggle room anyway. That left me with 21 inches of material. And my pallet wood is all less than 4 inches wide, but probably at least 3 inches wide. So if I take 21 and I divide that by 3, I come out with a nice even number like 7. No decimals, no weirdness like that. So I went ahead and set my table saw at 3 inches and ripped everything down to size there. And here you can see me running everything through the saw just like that. Once you've got everything ripped down to size, it's time to go ahead and start milling the wood down. Now we could send everything through the planer, but this is pallet wood and there are things like nails and rocks and all sorts of junk in them. And so if you were to send this wood through the planer, you would end up destroying your planer blades. And even with a nice set of helical head and bits like I have, that would still destroy the blades and you'd need to replace everything. Instead, I'm going to go ahead and use the belt sander to do the job. Now, the belt sander does have its own drawbacks. Mostly it produces a massive amount of sawdust, and if you're going to do this job, you must wear some sort of respirator or dust mask. Otherwise, you'll end up inhaling all this junk and you'll end up with a coughing fit by the end of the day. What you can do instead is a sort of a hybrid system. Have one person or yourself run everything through the sander the first time and check for any bright spots or rocks or anything like that. If you see a bright shiny spot on the wood, you know you've got steel and you should not send that through the planer. You should throw that out. However, if you send your piece of wood through the sander and you do not end up with shiny spots and you see nothing but nice clean wood, then you can be pretty sure that that piece of wood is relatively clean and safe for the planer. So once you've got everything sanded down, it's time to cut everything out. Now, I went with square and rectangles, but you could also try triangles and diamond-shaped pieces of material. Basically, whatever's going to work to sort of fit inside the puzzle that your box is going to become. Now, it's really easy if you set up a stop block to make all of these cuts really quickly. The only advice I have at this point would be to start with the largest pieces and work down from there. Because, especially when you're using the pallet wood, starting with the largest pieces, each piece of pallet wood will only maybe give you one cut. And then, as you move down, you might be able to get a second or even a third piece of material from that same piece of pallet wood. But if you start from the small and go up, you might run out of pallet wood. Okay, so this is the fun part. You've got a bunch of different materials of different sizes, different shapes, and preferably different types of wood. Go ahead and put them into your box. It's a bit of a puzzle. Have fun with it. Come up with an interesting design. There are a couple of general rules of thumb to follow. One would be use symmetrical designs. They tend to be more pleasing to the eye, and also use the rule of thirds. So if you have a 3-inch block, you should probably have a 3 by 9 inch block as well. 9 inches is 3 times 3. Or, put it another way, 3 inches is 1/3 of 9 inches. So it follows that rule of thirds. If you do that, you'll usually come up with a decent design that you'll like. And once you have everything in place, then it's time to go back and apply some stains to give it even more pop. So once the stain has had a chance to dry, it's time to go ahead and start gluing things into place. I used hot glue because it's fast and easy, but you could also use wood glue and little brad nails to hold everything in place while the wood glue dried. Now, one of the things I did to make this work is I went ahead and set out my pattern before I started gluing. And what this allows me to do is to pick up the piece of wood, apply some glue, slap it down, maybe drop in some brad nails if I really wanted to, and let it start gluing. And I don't mess up my pattern because I'm only gluing one piece at a time. Once everything is glued into place, you can go ahead and apply some sealant. I like to use polyurethane because it's nice and easy to clean up, especially the water-based polyurethanes. I like to use a brush. You can also use a cloth to sort of wipe it on, but a brush in this case is a better tool for the job. Now, with this project in particular, there are a lot of little tiny cracks and crevices for the polyurethane to fall into and get drippy on. So as you are doing this, make sure to watch the sealant that you're putting in and make sure you don't have any drips going on. Now, as you are doing this, you want to go ahead and look at the piece, checking for any spots that are not reflective, basically any part of the wood that has not received polyurethane. If it looks wet, then chances are you've managed to cover it with the polyurethane. If it isn't wet, then it won't shine back at you, and you know to go ahead and apply some polyurethane in that spot. Of course, once you are done applying the polyurethane, it's time to go ahead and wash the brush. Make sure you run the brush under cold water and brush out and wash out and smash out and sort of clean out the brush as much as possible. The water coming out of that brush should look clean by the time you are done. The polyurethane will take about 2-3 hours to dry. And once that's done, you can go ahead and use a bit of steel wool or a fine-grained sandpaper or even a Scotch-Brite pad to go ahead and rub it down and basically knock off any of the rough spots that the sealant may have created. After this, you go ahead and apply a second and then third coat of sealant. It's also a really good idea to go ahead and seal the back part of your project. This prevents water and moisture from getting into the project and causing the MDF and everything else to start warping and changing sizes and eventually destroying the project. The last part of this project is to create a French cleat. Now, a French cleat is simply a board that has been cut into two pieces at a 45-degree angle. So as I push this piece of wood through the table saw, you'll notice that the saw blade has been set at a 45-degree angle, and it is going to cut through and leave two angled pieces of wood. Installing the French cleat is pretty easy. All you really need to do is add some glue to the back side and then screw the cleat to the board. Now, you do want to create a hook with this so that if you were to grab onto the board, you'd be able to pull it along. If you have a nice easy ramp from the back of your board onto, say, the lip of the board, then you've installed it incorrectly and you should quickly unscrew it and reinstall. After the glue has dried, simply screw the mating board to the wall, also creating a hook, and you are ready to hang and enjoy your work of art. I hope you enjoyed watching this project as much as I did building it. If you happen to want to see more, go ahead and follow the links to other videos I've done. And of course, please like and subscribe. This is Mr. Hilbert, and I hope you've had a great day.